Hi guys, welcome to Hippo Brain. Here is where we have hippo-sized conversations with people with hippo-sized brains. So it gives me great pleasure to have today as our guest Arvind. Arvind is the co-founder of Kabaddi Adda. What's Kabaddi got to do with Hippo Brain? But it's an extremely interesting conversation because in one of my alternate lives, I still am associated with Puneri Paltan. It is a Kabaddi team, which is the Pune Kabaddi team. And weirdly, I met Arvind and we were doing a lot of analytics. So today, if you stay on, you will get a sense of analytics, you'll get a sense of cricket, you'll get a sense of Kabaddi, and you will see stuff or you will hear stuff that you would have never heard before. My pleasure to bring in Arvind, who's the co-founder of Kabaddi Adda. Before that, he and his wife ran an analytics firm. Before that, he's done various different startups, and he was with McKinsey and God knows what not. Rajesh, over to you.
Thanks, Jamit. Great to have you, Arvind. So you started at IIT, IIM, McKinsey, and then made this big jump into the world of analytics. Tell us how that story came about.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the call. It's really interesting to get on chatting with both of you. I've seen your previous episodes. Great fun. So see, the journey was a very interesting one. So let me step back a little. Right, IIT Mein is when we did our first startup. That was when my wife and me did something. Right, we started investing, and then because we, back then in 2005, if you're investing, you're sitting in a broker's office and investing. So I was actually sitting in that office, and there were a bunch of older men, and then there was the two of us, two IIT final year students, and a bunch of really old men sitting in one room in Chennai, yelling when Infosys stock price goes up $10. And that's when that's our first startup. That was profitable, and the company survived long enough. We actually ended up doing portfolio management for a few folks. So that company just did a bunch of things. We did analytics back then. Okay, so we actually built a company which was doing data. We said we're good at data, so we want to build this company that does market research, because we felt there is no way anyone has understood market research in this company. And our deep insight was this one thing where we said we will introduce questions in any survey, which will tell you if the user is faking it or answering it. That was our sales pitch. I'm not joking. There was a single sales pitch that we had. It did quite well. I mean,
I'm already curious. I'm already curious. What was this?
So that was it. Yeah. So what we used to do is, obviously it's contextual, and so we did an employee satisfaction survey for a textile guy, like which is like 5,000 employees, and it's all in Tamil. And so we hired around 100 MBA students from the local college to translate, to ask the questions to each person. And it was a 3-day market research exercise. But there were 3 questions amongst the 20 to tell you if people are just saying A, B, A, B, A, B. That was our deep IP. And so we did that. And well, what happened, I think, was that, we just graduated out of IIT. There was all this parental pressure. I cleared CAT for whatever it's worth. My wife my girlfriend then, wife now, she anyway got into PhD just after IIT. So she did a PhD in computation neuroscience. And so, we did this for almost 6 months after I got into Cal also, but it didn't really, there was no way it worked. So we kind of gave it away to someone. Today's world, it's called exit. Gave it away. And then we had some money, so we could afford nice things, right? And then I went through IIM Cal, and McKinsey happened. So I interned at McKinsey. And then subsequently joined McKinsey also after my internship. Did my internship in London, where I was quite clear I wanted to join India. I mean, in 2006-07, I was clear the story is all India. There is no point going anywhere else. So then, and McKinsey was 4 years, but actually at McKinsey there was a 1-year sabbatical again, where I went and worked in the project called as the National Intelligence Grid. So they were just setting up NatGrid, which is a central counter-terror infrastructure. It was under the Home Ministry, and it was a sabbatical from McKinsey. So it was a fantastic experience. I would never have imagined what it takes to work in the government and this happened in the aftermath of 9/11, right? And R2611, right? So I did that, and there was a lot of thinking about how do you use analytics. Palantir back then was a very small company, so I actually know the early founders of Palantir because they came and pitched their solution, and to me that was really mind blowing, right? That someone's doing something at that scale in 2010, and so that always stayed with me. And then when we came back, after McKinsey for a year or so, I did this e-commerce startup, which was a rocket internet funded business, this is 2012. Okay. So e-commerce, Flipkart hadn't raised much money. It had just finished its 20 million round. So 20 million and all, back then was an outrageous number, but in the context of Flipkart, I just need to set that up. And the funny thing is, for 3 months, we were out competing Flipkart. And we did one thing. Flipkart priced Apple products at X. We said X minus 10. We didn't have a very complex algorithm. We said we will sell Apple products. Humko kuch nahi karna hai. Hum becenge Apple product at discounted price. We grew like crazy, but obviously we ran out of money. But the good thing was what we did is there in the business, we kind of pivoted the business from being B2C to being B2B. And when we made that pivot, we ended up competing heavily with Staples and Office Depot. And we became like the default partner of choice for Cognizant, Wipro. I think 7 out of the top 10 insurance companies, I think 3 out of the top 5 IT companies, we were their office supplies partner. Basically, what we said is we took the e-commerce platform, made it a B2B platform. So everybody in the company technically can order the stationery they want. It gets posted to the store guy, and then against your user ID, you get it issued. And you would not think it's a big problem, but it's a massive problem, right? It's massive because when you're in a company of that scale, they buy more paper than our warehouse could hold. And you're not a small company by then. This is just paper, because stationery is such an integral part, right? And there's always been this sale that stationery is the dying industry. From 2012, I have still not seen it die. But anyway, and that journey, it did 2 things to us. Because we were doing B2B, we had to figure out how to be profitable. And that's when I again started collaborating with Danya, my wife. And she had finished her PhD. She was continuing doing some neuroscience research. And I said, can you help me look at my data and help me bring my working capital down to 3 days? That's it. Without changing, obviously, I can't control cash. Cash on both sides is not in control. So can we bring inventory down to 3 days? Right? Because obviously you can say, मैं cash change करूँगा, वो वाला business नहीं होगा यहाँ पे. Wipro won't pay whatever you do. So, and then what we ended up achieving, right, over the next year is we had 7 warehouses across the country. We were just 70 people, and we ran with less than 3 days of inventory in hand. So that was a fantastic journey because we were profitable. We were doing 30 to 40 lakhs of annual revenues, all from each of these marquee clients. So, repeat order obviously happens. All of those metrics were interesting, but it was a slow growth. It was B2B, right? At the end of the day. But that application of analytics there was very fascinating to me, that it is even solvable, right? That, yeah, it's really possible. Obviously it is, you would understand that B2B made is much more doable than B2C. That you can logically think about demand because I know who the customers are. I have some sense. So I think as that Offices experience as Offices kept going, the way that journey evolved, Rocket wanted to take it in a different direction. I had a slightly different point of view. So it made sense for me to kind of step out. They took the business forward, and Danya and me said, okay, let's kind of work together. And a lot of people want us, okay? Why will you work with your wife? Why will you work with your husband? And I mean, I think we gave it some thought, and we said, let's see when it breaks down. It can only break down to so much extent, no? There are so many other issues anyway that will pull your marriage down. This could be one of those. So we just started down, and then the entire analytics journey was really one where we said, we want to build some knowledge. There was no big vision. There was no, I want to build this massive company that does all these things, that solves a certain problem. Said, let us build so much depth and so much expertise that in a few years, that knowledge, that expertise will be priceless as opposed to the ability to build businesses. So that was a conscious call or a conversation that we had. And obviously she's the data scientist, right? I mean, I am still the sales guy, but that process that we made of saying we want to solve complex problems. We want to, so this was in 2016, 17, right? So we said we want to use AI actively. We want to become experts in machine learning. What does machine learning entail? Like, how can analytics really solve some of these problems? When we did it in Offices, it was a simple problem in that sense, right? I mean, you had to, very structured, inventory 3 din ka hona chahiye. But as we made the problem more complex, how would you solve it? See, one of the things we've learned, right, and this is more recent knowledge than back then, is that AI, ML, and all are very exciting words, but they're only as good as the question you ask. And I think building that awareness was very instructive for us. And it was really an awareness journey. And then we just had kids. So we were very clear that we want to spend time when the kids are young. Once they get older, they really don't want to engage with me. I'm sure they'll have more exciting things to do. We'll also have more exciting things. So, can we kind of bring all of this together? But what happened in the analytics journey was some very exciting parts for us, right? And that's how we managed to keep staying in it. So that DNA kind of continued. Thankfully, it's led to Kabaddi Adda, it's led to a few other parts. But that's kind of the journey, if that helps.
That's a very interesting. From analytics, building all of that, ये कबड्डी कहाँ से आया?
I'm sure you'll ask me. But see, Kabaddi really just happened, okay? I mean, let me first put that out there. Kabaddi was not even in the focus areas for us as a business. So when we started doing analytics, right, Saina Nehwal was playing in Bangalore, training with Vimal Kumar sir and Prakash Padukone in the academy here. And the Olympics was coming up. And so we were like, we are doing all this cool analytics. Can we really apply it to make any difference to her? This girl is in this, this athlete is in town. Is there a way for us to add any value to them? So we spent a couple of months thinking about so both of us understand badminton. So she's played badminton in college, Danya, and everyone's a badminton player in India, right? So okay, so we spent a bit of time trying to collect some data, think of the sport and say, can we apply analytics as we were doing for clients and, for paid customers and see if it makes any difference to sport. So obviously sports analytics was being talked about, but we were not approaching it from the way of saying, I will look at the video 5 times and tell you your racket grip is tested, thoda ghumaoge to smash will come better. We said that is really the nth grade of the problem. There have to be more fundamental reasons, more simple observations that might be missed. And that's what we did. So and I'm not going to go into deep dive because Saina is still actively playing. But we took some of these things and went and met. Luckily, there's a person from IMCAL who was working with Vimal Kumar sir. And so we reached out to him and Vimal sir really sat down and said, okay, tell me what you guys have. To me, that was a fantastic experience because Vimal sir first listened to us and then said, all this is fine, but you're really telling me statistics. Make it more insightful. What happens when Saina comes to the net? What happens when she moves back? Is she out of balance? And then we kind of said, data collection itself is such a massive problem. And when he asked these questions, I realized there is no way anyone can really answer that question. How many times does Saina Nehwal come to the net when she's fully in control while she has just played the shot in the back of the court? So what is a 3-shot sequence that is driving a miss or a fantastic finish, right? And questions like that were not really answerable. And so then we spent some time there. And then another very interesting thing happened. So then Prakash sir also sat down and said, come, show me your analytics. And then he took up, I distinctly remember this, right? This event was very pivotal to us in analytics. He took a paper, had a badminton court. He already has a printed set of papers with badminton courts drawn on it. Okay, so then Prakash sir takes that and draws. See, this is how I think of the game. these 9 spots, and then he goes into how a player should think about the game. I think about it like this. I don't know why everyone else doesn't think about it like this. And can you tell me if this is happening in the game? And that kind of got us pushed the thinking, right? And then we had to, and then the level of questioning became very interesting. And then so that journey became quite exciting. We ended up working with them. We ended up working with a bunch of the junior players after that. And so, we actually were able to, the sports analytics practice seemed to, at least exist as
just a quick question there. How did you actually collect the data in badminton? You had a person basically mapping people, or you used cameras? How did you do it?
So we were evolving to camera. We never built the solution, but we actually built a data collection tool. And that has become another one of our USPs now. But we used AI, or whatever the hell you want to call it. So it's an intelligent tool, right? As the user collects data, it pre-fills most of the next set of data. So the collector really needs to only edit changes as opposed to collect.
Can you explain a little more? I know it's your IP, but just...
No, I don't mind talking about it. I believe IP is overrated. If someone's going to build it, they should build it. I mean...
So then we'll pin you. Explain that a little more.
Yeah. So see, I think what we did, right, is basically... so in any exercise, okay, and this is true, I think, with anything in data collection, and this comes from our original background also. Typically, one event leads to another. And what we do in any typical data collection tool is we make it a static tool, like a Google Sheet, Google Form, and then every time you have to refill all of it. What did we say? We said, देखो यार, अगर वो back corner से एक shot खेल रही है, तो court के इतने जगह पर ही आएगा. And if the 2 shots before that was a toss that went there, it is very unlikely that the player can reach there fast enough. So they automatically cuts it down to only 2 possible returns. So now the data collecting agent is not really, making 6 choices. So he's not checking for error. So I'm actually pre-filling what it could be. And then he says, oh no, this is wrong. And when he changes, he gets the most natural alternate. If the player has played something completely different, then it also gets highlighted in the back end saying, he plays something very different. So validate data collection. And B, if this happened, it's really an outlier, might be very good to deep dive into, and maybe then do a video cut and video review. And that's where the coach comes in, right? They look at the video review and say, the reason this happened is because she had already anticipated and started moving in that direction. That data will never capture. In 100 years, you're not going to capture context, right? At least in badminton and stuff like that. We are too far away from it. But so that's what we did. So we actually had people sitting and collecting data. And we basically told Vimal, sir, you have to pay for that. That exercise I cannot fund. I am willing to do everything else free of cost because analytics is great fun. But the data collection has to be a funded exercise. And they were very, Prakash sir also is one of the few Indian players who turned professional, right? 1970s when he turned professional. He paid for himself, which is, I don't think it is heard of even today in sport. So obviously it was an easier conversation with them. But coming back, so that was the tool. Yeah? So we were collecting the data, Rajesh. There are no 2 ways to it. And so we had, for every shot, right, we had parameters like position on court. And position on court is what we were trying to automate with cameras. We can talk about that a little, but position on court, height of shot, type of shot, and then balance. Balance is subjective. So balance is only utilized as a differentiator in the analytics and not as a core decision-making pattern, right? So, yeah, so then while we were doing this badminton, right, I told you we had a small sports analytics team finally. So we covered, we managed to use the team and created a website called PBL, PBL.com or something like that. I don't know. Premier Badminton League had just launched season 1. And obviously we had deep understanding of badminton by then. So we created this page where we were giving odds for every game. And we had not even, there was no agenda. There was just an agenda of saying, we understand badminton, let's put out our understanding and see how crappy it is and how decent it is. We were putting out odds for matches. We were putting out some news items, etc. So that happened purely because the team was there and we said, chalo, content karte hain. And one of the interns there said, boss, ye badminton sab kyun kar rahe ho? Why are you guys not doing kabaddi? I was like, kya kabaddi? Kaun? Kya? This is season 2 is just happening. Okay. Like, kya bol rahe tum? So our kabaddi journey was this deeply thought through, just to be clear. So we then and we said, chal yaar, teko itna interest hai, to chalo, why don't you teach us the sport? So this guy went, took a match, played the match in full screen in office and said, this is how the sport is played. Here's the nuance. And then I think by the time season 2 got over, almost everyone in the office liked the sport. We really loved it. And so it was very surprising. We were like, yeah, I can't imagine there is no data for the sport. There was no data. The only data, it was, I mean, I'm sure you know, it was shocking how much the gap in the data was. And to us, right, that was surprising, because you would have thought there's a big league. It's a popular league. By season 2, it had already proven that it's popular, right? And so we said, chalo karte hain. Let's do what we like to do. Let's collect data. So season 3, we didn't know who owned the teams. We didn't know anything. We said, let us collect data and let us understand the sport. So we collected data and we started, it was the second half of season 3. Yeah, season 3 is the one where, correct, season 3 is the one where Fuzzle really took off, right? So season 3, second half, I remember this, and we had actually gone through the season, we were collecting data, and as the semifinals came up, Surinder Nada came back. He had gone off to play the South Asian Games, and he came back, and I remember us writing this article out there saying, U Mumbai should start the game with Fuzzle and not as Surinder Nada. And that was damn controversial, because Surinder Nada was the best left corner in the country by some distance. And there was absolutely we didn't have nuanced understanding. We just had data, we were capturing form, and we were capturing metrics that we felt typically people weren't capturing. So we were capturing how many points a player was losing, as opposed to just the points you were earning, right? And I know now that you will understand that difference, but I think that difference is too important in kabaddi. The points you lose are really priceless, because you're bringing another player on, not just that you're losing a point, right? And I remember that single insight was so fantastic, because if you see the finals, data obviously sounds exciting when you say it in hindsight, but still, when you see the finals, they started with Surinder Nada, and U Mumbai almost lost that match, the season 3. They lost it finally, but then in the second half, they substituted Nada with Fuzzle. And then that game just completely turned. And U Mumbai looked like they would win it till that last raid, right? That last fortuitous raid by Deepak Narwal. I mean, I was a big U Mumbai supporter. I mean, I didn't know anyone back then, right? I loved the way that team worked. And yeah, man, I think that's when we said, okay, maybe this sport the sport is a lot like basketball and cricket, right? It's like basketball in the sense it's turn by turn. It's like cricket in the sense there is so much happening. It's like basketball because it's 40 minutes. It's so fast, it's so much fun. And if you look at the parallels of where basketball is in data, it's just unbelievable. It's not even, it's Zameen Asman ka farak, right? So we said, let's go for it, man. And then so we put that out, and then we reached out to Jay, and then that journey, I think, was an interesting one. I remember Jay reaching out to responding and saying, "Kya karega tu?" And you also doing one call with me. Think, how will you choose between this guy and that guy? I'm not taking.
Yeah. No, I agree. Those days we were like completely like, okay, let's bring some. We only knew that there was no sense to this. We knew that anything is better than what we have.
Jayant, fill in the story a little bit. How did you and Arvind connect?
So this is a little this thing. So the company I worked for. So in the personal capacities, the owners owned the Puneri Pultal team, and it's damn weird. I got it because they got it. It wasn't like a well thought of like, okay, kabaddi jo bhi hai. Like I was the marketing head of one of the firms who also played a lot of cricket. And I used to organize cricket matches and all of that. God knows why it came to me. And we got involved, and it was damn silly. The first auction we went for, it was me as a cricket captain of the B team of the damn play, going and trying to wonder, मैं bidding करने वाला हूँ. obviously we messed it really bad, and out of 8 teams, we came a respectful 8th. so then but credit to the owners, we decided that this is not what we want. We got in better coaches, we tried to get in better players, etc., and we were realizing we were trying to do something. And then when Jay got in and said, we have Arvind on analytics, and I was like, awesome, this is exactly what we wanted, because the data is not there, and we knew there were errors. So a lot of players are just players because they're big guys. I'm a player. And there are a lot of young kids coming in and trying to take away points. And one of the things that we probably even realize what Arvind is saying, that Kabaddi is very, very interesting. You not only lose a point, the other guy gets a significant advantage because you've lost a point, because he gets another player revived coming back, etc. And there are various different angles to it. There is defenders corner. It wasn't used at all. So that's where I met Arvind, and I've had the first few really amazing conversations with Arvind ki, tu data kya lega? So Arvind, some of that ki, how do we structure the data? What is the height of the defender? Fundamentally, a player cannot be more than 85 kgs. And there are only an X number of players involved, and they keep going in and out. So how do you balance the team? So Arvind, this is not my thunder, this is your thunder. So your stuff on how do we balance the team? What is the kind of data we need to collect? How do we put in? How do we put those points? How do we build that model? I can go on, but it's yours. It's yours.
No, I love talking about this, right? For me, after we started doing Kabaddi, it became so exciting. I really fell in love with the sport, and I was surprised that I was in touch with it after school, right? And a lot of the Kabaddi at that journey also evolved because we liked it so much. Obviously, the audience also likes it, so there is a business. But coming back to your just focus question, right? When we started doing analytics, we said, boss, first so let us just say who are the good players, and we were trying to answer a very simple question, because it was, I'm going to use cricket analogy because I don't know how many people understand Kabaddi today, right? In this case, it is not just the number of runs scored, it is the number of times you get out. In cricket, you're out, matlab out, gaya tu. Yahan pe you keep coming back, right? And then there is this whole point of where you lose and when you as a raider lose a point in a do or die raid, what does that do for a team, right? How do you revive a player? And then whom do you revive? So all these aspects that, they got very muddled in our head, and they became very complex when we were trying to explain. So we said, let's stop, let's step back. What can we do in analytics? First, let us find out how many points a player is really getting the team. So we started with that simplest of questions, saying, what is the actual points you're earning the team? So that is points earned minus points lost minus points your team could have earned if you had done some sort of a respectful job, an average job, something to that effect, right?
So let me just hold you just for the sake of for the listener or the viewer. Scores in Kabaddi, you can score, let's say, 20 points. A raider has scored 15 points.
Yes.
The score sheet reflects 15 points.
Correct.
But it is quite possible that the raider has gone out 20 times.
Yes.
So and the score sheet will still show.
But he would have gone out 10 times for
10 times for sure. Yeah, probably 10. You would have, so your net score is not what the score sheet says.
It never shows.
The score sheet always shows 10.
Correct.
This insight, what Arvind is saying, is a very interesting data insight, that it's not what you get, it's what you also don't get that you needed to add. Sorry, Arvind, go ahead.
Correct. No, I think that we realize that just adding that is why Fazal looked like a better defender than Surinder Nada, for example, right? I'm just making a very specific point. And then there is this whole point of when you're a defender and a raider comes on a do or die raid, if you lose a point, it's literally a double whammy. Because, just to explain this to people who don't know, when it's a do or die raid, if the raid is an empty raid, the raider loses the point. So there is no business the defender has losing that point, right? The pressure is all on the raider. The goal, the responsibility is entirely the raiders. And so as a result, if you're losing that point, it's a criminal offense. It's not a fair thing, but it's a big loss for the defending team if that happens. So obviously the sport has also now evolved in the last 3-4 seasons. But back then we felt just computing these two metrics would change everything. And that was the first point where we started. Right? We said, because it was too complex to otherwise break it down. So we started with saying, let us compute losses and let us reflect reality of what a person is bringing to the win. Then we kind of took it a little more forward, and we said, over time we said a player has to get a win for his team. And this actually came from some of the cricket work. In cricket, we actually created there is a metric called as win probability added. We created the cricket version of that, where it's called WPA. We call it WPA. What you're seeing is every ball, we are computing what is the probability of win for the team. And then we are adding it or subtracting it from the batsman or the bowler. So if the probability of win at ball 18.1 is 73 is 0.73. And the probability 77321. Probability of win in 18.2 is 0.74. 0.74 minus 0.7321 is what is being earned by the batter and has been lost by the bowler. Right? And this is very important, because in cricket and in kabaddi, but in cricket, people keep telling you, that 6 runs is very valuable. Context koi dekh nahi raha. That 1 6 that Mitchell Santner hit on the last ball is priceless. Although he just scored 6 runs in the whole tournament, he gave you that win. Right? And WPA is trying to capture exactly that. When you need 6 of one ball, you lose that game 75% of the time. So if you have hit that 6, you have driven that win. However much people have done a lot before. So the equivalent in kabaddi is something we started evolving to. But kabaddi is complex, right? As we discussed, because the player keeps coming back. So your ability as a team is how do you bring back your key players? And now I think teams have also gotten much more nuanced, right? Teams have gotten much better at having very thoughtful strategies and then having the ability to execute it. Like you said, teams with younger players are pulling it off better. Teams with more thought through execution are doing a slightly better job. But I think it's still so nascent in kabaddi. The data collection is even today just limited to what is happening. And now it's a little more of what is the action taken. So what type of event is led to a player getting out. You're still not doing spatial data, for example, right? We have started collecting spatial data, but we're not taking any decision. I mean, I present it in storytelling mode, but the spatial data, by spatial data, I mean, what is a player doing at which point in the court? How often is he getting out at certain points? Is a certain sequence of action driving a certain outcome? Those kind of decisions are not even close to happening, right? And these are all obviously well into the sport in basketball, maybe 20 years ago.
So it's very interesting, Arvind. I think the analogy in the corporate world would be that the points scored really are the transactions, while everything else is the behavioral data, what's happening in the app, what a customer is doing on the website. And all of this is going into a CDP. So if I just map the analogy, you're collecting everything, putting it into a database, and then you have the sort of end outcomes, which are the transactions. But you're also, all the spatial data that you're talking about really helps for probably predict what should the next best action of a player be.
So you hit actually a very interesting point. So this is one of our largest premise in the stuff we do. Basically, we come in and say, we'll help you predict an outcome. And often we are saying that behavior and features, I mean, in that you would use features as a common word here. Both of you are very comfortable with that language. But, your features, your ability as an analyst is not about saying, I will run these 3 models on this feature and give an outcome. It is about asking really interesting questions, right? How do you ask the question that you just said, the analogy that you drew? How do you map, it's like transactions and all of these is behavior in the app. And we actually did a client engagement where we helped them where we helped the e-commerce company estimate when are their sellers likely to churn out, right? And the reason I brought that up is exactly what you just asked. We were telling them, boss, this seller is going to churn out in 3 to 6 weeks. So your best option is to actually place an order yourself to keep this seller active, if that's what it takes, because you don't want to lose long tail, right? And people often overestimate or underestimate the predictive analytics the way it works. And so good predictive analytics is really saying, let's understand the feature set well, let's understand the data set well, and let us try and explain an outcome using this data. You should be able to explain it manually. If you can't, and a model is built something randomly, the chance that it will work all the time is almost zero, right? I mean, it'll work in an overfit testing scenario, but it will not work in the real world when you put it out there. And that philosophy, that first principles approach to analytics, has been really exciting for us. Now, I know that's not how a lot of the world does it, but we are very bent upon saying a first principles approach to every problem is very important. That's also, I think, the McKinsey training, right? McKinsey is also very specific. It was her customer ka tum customer focused answer hona chahiye. And that is true for business, right? You can't just take a cookie cutter answer. You can't take a model, run it on a data set and say, this is my predictive model. This will now predict what is the likelihood of claim, or what is the claim propensity for every agent or every transaction, right?
So what you're saying is right. So it's pretty interesting. So it's coming back to the Kabaddi thing, is that you started putting in all these models. Now, what I know is that the first one, so analytics comes in Kabaddi in, actually people probably underestimate, in two places. One, building your team, because every season almost there is an auction. Correct. And the auction is complicated and there are various forces at play. So there is the coach, there is the owner, there is the balance of the team, there is the defenders and the raiders that you want, there is the substitutes that you need to have, and there are the champions of do or die raids and all of that. And bringing that to a finite resource, an X amount of money that you have, and you have 8 to 12 teams that you have to fight it. That's where the first analytical battle was fought, right, Arvind?
Yeah, that was that seemed to us to be a very natural evolution of what we were doing, right? Which is, how do you build good teams? And it's beautiful that we got into Kabaddi, because we realized that the analytics we were doing was extremely valuable when you try and answer the question, how do you build a good team, as opposed to trying to work with individuals. Working with individual players, individual stars is limiting, in the sense you have to work with every player one after one, right? But if you're going to be working with a franchise and you're trying to help build a team, your margin of error is different, because your aggregate has to look good. It doesn't matter if you don't have one superstar, right? If you're trying to build a team, obviously you're trying to build a franchise, owners have separate agenda also. So I'm not mixing the two. Very simple agenda of saying, how do you build a fantastic team, comes down to saying, every person in the team has to contribute something to your win. So let us say you have, and it's a very simple basket. If you step away from sport and think of it as a simple economics problem, which is what we did. We said, boss, paisa hai. Paisa is a limited number. It's a fixed entity. Everyone is limited by this number. All franchises can spend only so much. Spending so much, how do you build a winning team? So then it comes down to your definition of saying, what would you define as a winning team? So that is one. That's where our analytics automatically came in. We were able to explain a season. So we were able to say, okay, this is a minimum composition of a winning team. And winning, again, you set different goals of winning, right? As a franchise, you want to say you have a great league season. And they say this very heavily in cricket, right? It is one of the reasons Chennai Super Kings is so interesting. They have a very clear goal. First hurdle, cross the league stage. You have to clear the league stage. You have to play every man. You have to basically qualify through the league stage. That is the key requirement. And now they have done it every season they have played. Because they have said, boss, winning a title or losing a title is a function of people playing well on 3 days. But winning the league is a very different experience. You have to play for 15 games, 14 games, to play for 6 weeks. You have to get it right? And that equivalent in Kabaddi is very, very high. Since winning the league versus winning the tournament are two very different skills. But winning the league requires you to build a balanced squad. And balanced squad means balanced squad with limited money automatically means you have to spread your money and you have to buy win with every rupee. So every rupee you pay has to give you 0.1 of a win. That I think making that demand curve and then making that equivalent supply curve would basically tell you, okay, this intersection point really is not easy. And so what we were doing in Kabaddi is trying to say, how will your demand and supply curves keep matching in real time, right? And that is important because in real time, everyone's purse changes. So you are actually tracking the purse of all people in the auction, the demand that everyone has for any upcoming resource, and then the supply of that resource. So I'm using this language because it's intuitive, right? But that is the reality. That is exactly how auction runs.
That is, and each resource has a certain set of goals.
Correct.
Like a right defender can only do right.
Yes.
If you have 2 right defenders, you're not going to go for 1 more right defender.
And you can't say that this is not replaceable skill. So then, and that's where obviously a sport auction becomes interesting, right? You are also saying, boss, I am limit, and then even within a skill, there is levels. So in a right defender, you have a grade A, a grade B, a grade C, and then somebody who will keep you, who will come in when you have injuries. And you probably need all 4, right? And so then you have to say, okay, what is a trade-off I'm willing to make? Do I trade off stability? Do I trade off the ability to win versus the risk I'm taking? So that trade-off is always a very it's I think a single question we help franchisees and teams decide, right? And we think as an analytics team, because we come in and say, we don't come in and say I know the sport. We come in and say I understand the sport. I understand what it takes to build a winning team in the sport, but I also understand what it takes to run a good auction. And that's, I think, been very high clarity for us. We tell both the franchisees we're working with, and we tell them, boss, I'm not telling you how to play the sport. That you have a coach for, you have an entire network system to run that. But I'm telling you that this team is heavily likely to qualify if we run the auction well. And then obviously assuming that the players somewhat play to form. But the point of running a good auction is you have built enough backup for a couple of players dropping out of form also. And then, that's where the young players, some scouting skills come in. Those are secondary, but those are all also important to building a franchise, right? A good franchise does all parts of the auction well. They don't just do the auction.
And also very critical is that the other guys are unable to take a cheap buy. So it's not just you getting it, it's to ensure that nobody walks away with a cheap buy.
So I think, one of the things we did, right, is we came up with something that we defined as fair price for every player. And we said, at this price, every player is valuable. Basically, if you buy your squad full of players at fair price, you will have the perfect squad. I mean, that is the analytical answer, right? Obviously, the real world has its own challenges, but the point we are trying to make is that at a price, every player is valuable. And that insight, right, is I think it's taken time for us to get owners to recognize it. But as ownership and management gets to see it in action, they're able to. It makes sense, right? In the corporate world, if I tell you, बस तुम्हारे पास finite resource है और तुमको 4 चीजों में spread करना है, you will do expected return and you will put it you'll ideally spread it, right? But the point is when you're doing it in sport, the ability to make that decision is not easy. That is, I think, that framework is what we've kind of tried to answer. And then that fair price helps you think about it in real time. That is the big difference. Right? Because you have to finally make this decision in real time. Unlike in the corporate world where you have time, you may still struggle, but you still have time. You don't have to make the decision in the next 30 seconds. There is never a decision you have to make in 30 seconds. But here you have to make that decision in 30 seconds on the auction table.
So one question, Arvind, I'm just extrapolating from what you're saying.
Yeah,
is it possible to actually take all of the data that you're getting on all the players, the opponents, and apply ideas like agent-based modeling and simulate a whole game? So can you sort of predict the outcome of a game before the game is actually played? Because you know exactly the strategies, you know, of course, this is just a prediction, but can you sort of make that happen with what you have?
I mean, yeah. So
I'll give you lots of examples where Arvind has predicted the game.
So yeah, I mean that's like Jaimin said, right? That's one of our current USPs, where we actually have built a simulator for cricket. We have a simulator for kabaddi, and kabaddi is really complex, man. Cricket is almost easy, you would say. I mean, easy is not a fair word, but it's relatively so much easier, because in kabaddi the player comes back. In cricket you go out. When you're out, you're out. In kabaddi you're not dead. You're back and you keep doing it. And the kabaddi simulator was really a brutal exercise for Danya, and it was such a fantastic problem to solve. So we have 2 or 3 ways of answering the question, right? One is we have an actual simulator. So what the simulator does is actually plays the game. It plays the game for 85 rates, because in a typical pro kabaddi match there is between 79 to 85 rates. So we play 85 rates because we can't play for time, right? That we can't simulate. So we play for 85 rates. And then we try and say, and then we simulate it 10,000 times, 50,000 times. And then we remove all outlier games, because games where there's a 60-10 result. Right? Because you know that is not going to happen in the real world. It typically doesn't happen in the real world. But it's still an outlier, and it's not unreasonable. Unreasonable. It is not impossible. It is implausible. Right? And we built these simulators in both sports. And now we are actually trying to predict outcomes of full seasons with squads before the start of the season in both these sports. And we are saying if we are getting around 60-70% accuracy in predicting match results, and around 70-80% accuracy, that is one team who get it wrong in terms of who will qualify, you actually have a decent understanding of what's happening. Or if you can, so what we do is also we call out the parameters that is driving these decisions. So now if one of these parameters change significantly, for example, this year's IPL will happen in Dubai, and now your bowling metrics are going to be very different. The average runs scored in the tournament is going to be very different. So so this is modeled in Indian conditions, right? So now for my simulator to work during IPL 2020, we'll have to correct it after the first 5-6 games on what is average runs being scored. Are it slower pitches? Is it more turning pitches? So we have some of these parameters that we count, right? Thankfully, kabaddi mein pitch is not there. It has its own complications, but pitch is it's a beast in itself, right? And so we are trying to do that. And what we believe is, as long as you can explain your modeling approach, right? The team you're working with understands. And then when there is deviations, it doesn't look like post facto explanation, right? It looks like, okay, these factors you can't control. Some things I can't tell you if dew is going to be there or not. If it's happening in IPL, I know broadly a conditions hai, right? So my model is more likely than not to work. In Chepak, it has certain conditions. Toss has a certain impact, but we don't know what it is going to be in the Middle East, right? When for example, let me tell you this. This year's IPL, there's almost a 10 to 15 degree temperature drop from morning to evening in Dubai at this season. So we really don't know how bad the dew is going to be. And T20 is already a game of win, toss, bat second, right? This tournament is going to be even more accentuated. Our very cursory explanations say it will be more like 70% of the winners are going to be the team batting second, or maybe higher. And that's quite brutal if that happens, right? So then, but yes, the simulators that we are building are trying to simulate event by event and then make a decision and then say, okay, then what? Hence what? And ideally, teams get better, so your simulator also starts getting more intelligent. But that's still a process, right? That's obviously a long-term process.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So yeah, kabaddi, and then getting those analytics and then getting the players to play to those analytics is something that we won't touch about on this time.
I think kabaddi is the reason kabaddi is so exciting, right? Is I think it is so close to Bharat. and it is so different from cricket. The audience is very passionate, and in Kabaddi Adda, almost 90% of our audience follow the sport outside of English, right? So it's all about non-English audience. It's that audience it's tier 2, tier 3. So we call it Bharat ka khel only. In Kabaddi Adda, our whole pitch is Bharat. We are saying, छोड़ो English, Hindi में करो. So in fact, I would love to have run this session in Hindi. मेरी Hindi की ability limited है. So I am always making the switch. But and because of that, it brings a lot of challenges when you take analytics to some of these, when you take it to the players, right? Cricket is obviously more evolved, but cricket has a different set of decision makers and accepting mechanisms. But Kabaddi, getting people in Kabaddi, you have to still first get the ownership, you have to get the leadership to understand the analytics. Often people say it is so messed up, I don't know what to do. And I think that is not true. I think there is a lot of ability that good logical thinking can bring to the sport.
It's a different conversation where if you tell Pahel, don't go for this, and he says, "Mere range mein aaya, I will go." now try and play for that.
I think that is true with athletes, right? I mean, athletes by nature are all about, they have trained it's a body-mind training that has already been there, right? And they have achieved this in their head, this level of excellence because of that symphony of their body and mind. And now when, as an analyst, you tell them to do something different, they will look at you and say, what are you talking about? Why don't you try it? And that is true, right? Sometimes you just don't get it. I mean, the data will tell you, boss, ye karo. And he'll say, tum karke dikhao na. And then you'll have this conversation and say, no, maybe, what I meant is you should probably try this.
So analytics sort of meets instinct is what you're
saying. Yes, totally. Analytics and instinct. So sport is exciting because of that, right? Analytics can only get so far. You need to bring the two together. You need to bring human behavior and analytics together. And I think that's something CSK has done fantastically over the years.
Yeah, actually coming to that, that's an interesting one. And we'll come to some interesting bits from Rajesh as well on cricket. But just while I hold you, CSK, I know you've done some work there. So can you just spend some time explaining some of the cricket analytics and the fun you had there?
See, we really, so cricket happened after Kabaddi. So we had already gone through 2 or 3 auctions. 2 auctions, I think, with Kabaddi already before we had even worked with CSK. So we at least came in with some clarity on how auctions are run, on human behavior in an auction. So now we are also trying to say something like, we can help estimate human behavior in an auction. Estimate. I'm not saying I will predict. It is stupid. It's just, but I can explain logical human behavior that is going to happen in an auction. So I can actually play out a logical auction for you reasonably in advance. So it gives you, so as a franchise going in, that's I think one big value we bring to them, where we tell them this is how the auction is likely to run. These are the big inflection points likely to happen in the auction. And given our specific strategy, here are the big risks we have to cover for. And you can imagine, right? In cricket, it's 80 crores, 85 crores that is being spent in 2 days. So the auction is not half as fast as what Kabaddi is. Right? The auctioneer obviously gives you time because every increment is 20 lakhs. In Kabaddi, you buy a player for that price. So obviously the scale of decision making is massive. And some franchises come, and I think everyone comes extremely prepared. There is no doubt on that. So what you are trying to do is on the edge have that little bit of value. Right? How do you make the decision? And again, so one of the big things we did with CSK also was our fair value. But there we did 2 things. So we did a player fair value, and we also did a likely auction value. So, there are some players, like because Indians are more valuable because you can play only 4 foreigners. There are some Indian players for whom the fair value might be a little lesser than what their fair value will be a lesser amount given the number of wins they can contribute. But the fact is you need to have 7 Indians playing Indians. So because of that constraint, right, Indians are a limited resource. And as a result, you will see some outrageous pricing on Indian players. I mean, a simple takeaway is the Jaydev Unadkat prize, right, in that big auction. It is just a function of the supply demand. And because we have that clarity of understanding, that simple piece we bring a lot of value on, right? We've also done some other work with cricket. Most notably, our single biggest insight was, I touched on this metric called as WPA, right? Win probability added. So what we did is we actually computed WPA for every player through every match, through every season, through multiple seasons. So you can talk about players, how much WPA they contribute. And when you take the WPA lens, you recognize how valuable players like Ravindra Jadeja are. And the fact that he comes in and does that role, and Dhoni says these words, right? Players do their role. We began to see it in action. Now, obviously, once we had WPA, we were able to capture context of every event. So the 6 that Mitchell Santner hit off the last ball is a really valuable event. And for that, you will keep the player in your team, because if you want to put him in there, you have the ability to get a fantastic WPA out of him. But the ability to keep consistently deliver WPA and not lose games. So cricket has another way, right? Players, a few players can lose you the game. And it's rare that one player wins you the game. Obviously, a few franchises have gone that route. CSK has gone the route of obviously having Dhoni, but then having a team that wins it for you. And to me, right, and I know this adds to the Dhoni legend, but it's just unbelievable, the data. So what we did is we calculated WPA for all the players, and we plotted a normal period distribution. And then you have a distribution curve. And when you have a distribution curve of WPA, which is a certain distribution, and if you plot the distribution with and without Dhoni on the field, the WPA shifts by 0.5. I am not even joking.
Serious. This is serious. This is the craziest explanation I have of why Dhoni is God.
Obviously we all we like Dhoni. Obviously, I work with them closely, so obviously I have a very different kind of regard. But this is just pure data, right? And if one player's presence or absence on the field shifts the WPA of your entire team, like it's just, you guys understand curves, right? So when you see a distribution curve just move to the right, it is just shocking, right? It should not happen. It just should not happen. I think that is just, and I can see why people say all these things, right? If Dhoni is fit, he's the first choice player. Somebody made those comments the last 2-3 days. It is a no-brainer. I remember, so when we got into this auction, there was a very funny point in this journey, because Dhoni had a couple of bad seasons with Rising Pune, and CSK. We had just started working with them, and then they came and asked us, do you think you should retain Dhoni? So we didn't have a strong point of view either ways. We had just started doing cricket analytics. So हमने कुछ बोला नहीं, हमने बोला सर पता नहीं, देखना पड़ेगा. So thankfully we said that. And they said, listen, there is no world in which that decision is being considered. So it is not even a discussion that gets considered, right? And that, I think, is what CSK does beautifully. They have such good understanding of working with the players, right? They genuinely offer stability. They say, well, stability is here, and we will work as a unit. So there were a lot of interesting examples of how a back office is run. I would argue, one of the most successful franchises of all sport anywhere, right? Obviously, sport is not run more than 12 seasons, so it's a very tall claim. But, in 12 seasons, in 10 seasons they played, they've qualified all 10 seasons. Luck can only take you that far.
And you were associated with that team when I would, forgive me when he said it, the old men team lifted the cup.
See, yeah, that we were, so let me give you another insight. So we actually plotted this, and you will not believe this. We actually plotted a curve of what is the impact of age on every player. And this is something we presented to the management, saying, we do not believe that players will degrade, will have any impact in performance till they hit 37, 38. Right? So we basically did a form follower curve. So, and that was that was data again for us. Because at the point of view, नहीं था उस time पे. And so when we went into that auction, and when Shane Watson was a discussion that was happening, it was such an easy decision for me. I mean, I was not making the decision, obviously. It was I was sitting on the sideline, right? But to me, it seemed like a very obvious choice that we should be buying Shane Watson. It doesn't matter that he's 35, 36, 37. He can give you a bunch of runs. He can give you a bunch of wins through bowling. Now he's not bowling, but at that point when he made that decision. And that was the same thing, right? How much value can a player bring for every rupee? Similar decision, the Harbhajan Singh decision, right? It was a very simple, boss, he'll bring so many wins at 2 crores. How many off spinners do you find? Supply doesn't exist of off spinners. You could argue however much you want, but nahi hai, supply nahi hai, demand hai. And so then teams are making do with part-timers. And that is not the same thing, no. There is a reason that Ravichandran Ashwin, Harbhajan Singh are so valuable versus a part-time off spinner. And they're Indian off spinners, right? So you can put them into a squad every single day. You can't take a foreigner because he takes away one of your foreign batsmen, takes away a foreign slot. Or you then buy a foreign spinner like Imran Tahir, right? Who can then win you a season also. He'll get you 20, 25 wickets. And that decision, I remember, right? That decision was so interesting because there was so much clarity within the management that he is the best leg spinner in the world. So why are we worried about his age? And that conversation explicitly happened in the the auction prep room, right? Because obviously, I mean, there's a bunch of us, right, who are the young guys in the team. And then there's team management saying, but why is age? Why should age be the decision criteria? You all are telling us that age doesn't affect performance. The player looks fit. He is right now, currently the world number one. Back then when Imran Tahir was born, he was a world number one T20 bowler, right? So why would you have a problem buying the world number one T20 bowler, especially if he's going to come to you at base price, and that thinking. So interestingly, CSK has a very high clarity on fair price. So for us, when he went to them with fair price, it was very easy for us to explain them saying every player is valuable at a number. They said, we agree. What is your number for each player? And then that became very tricky because they asked us for a number for every player. And then we actually put down those numbers and then we went through those. So I think that in cricket also the journey of analytics has been very clear. Do auctions well. And now we are trying to say, can we explain the game better? Right? We have done this for 3 years with them and we're saying, can we explain the sport to you? Can we explain parameters that are driving wins? Can we explain the depth it will require to build a winning squad? Right? Do you need X number of bowlers, X number of spinners? What? So in cricket, funnily, we have actually created an ELO rating. So now we have an ELO rating for every player. So our match predictions are based on ELO rating. And so ELO actually starts capturing form also. So that's one of our big jumps in analytics. And we think, applying thinking from chess of ELO to cricket it's a very interesting way. Because then you can suddenly, other people often say, you're not capturing the fact that Jasprit Bumrah was the one who bowled that over. So we're saying when a bowler of the ELO rating of Jasprit Bumrah bowls to a batsman of the ELO rating of me, if I get a 4, I deserve to, my ELO rating needs to go up dramatically. I have earned it. I have got it. I have earned it against ELO rating of 2,700. So that ELO rating has been a big game changer for us because it's helped us look at the sport very differently suddenly. With WPA and so WPA is capturing context. ELO rating is capturing the difference between the micro contest on the pitch, right? So those are our big kind of steps in cricket today.
It's fascinating. If I just quickly apply this in the business world, the idea of customer lifetime value really comes in the same way that every customer is not the same. A few customers are worth tremendously, more very valuable. And this whole idea of RFM, recency, frequency, monetary value, etc. I think we probably have a separate discussion for that at some point of time, but I think there's amazing parallels between the way you're thinking on the analytics side versus what can be also done on the corporate business side with the B2C side.
That is true. So we did a lot of customer lifecycle value in our e-commerce company. And so all of our working in analytics is informed a lot by our biases so like I said, right, Danya's background is neuroscience. So she's doing a lot of brain research. She's saying, how do you image a brain? She's doing fMRI imaging of the brain, right? She works in that space. And then, so she's talking about what space of the brain, for example, is maybe driving a certain action, right? It's a broad conversation at that level. And you're working with a lot of neurons. That is one of the influencers of how we approach analytics. The other influencer is a little mind, right? Which is saying, how would you solve this business problem? What is the economics to it, right? And auctions are clear economics questions. So they are very clear to me that it is a simple economics question. And then there is a lot of our teams understanding of how would we do the analytics, right? So if we, let us understand what is the result. Let us not just present statistics and models. Instead, let us present stories. So we really focus on trying to tell a story. And that's, I think, how we would do it in the corporate world, right? So we often do client work, but that's mostly because you need to fund some of the sports analytics, right? But Abhi to Kabaddi Adda has become like a big focus. So that takes away a little bit of the other focus.
Yeah.
So
yeah, on Kabaddi Adda, your big challenge would be getting data. And I knew that 22 years ago, 25 years ago, Rajesh was trying to do something with Khel.com, and he was also trying to get some data. I think both of you will bond over how scarce or valuable this resource is for doing any sort of analytics. So before you go, Rajesh, tell me your story. There's a very interesting story that you had on in 96 about data and cricket data, if I'm not mistaken.
So great point, Jamit. Essentially, when in 97, we wanted to launch Khel.com. I mean, like all Indians, I loved cricket. I grew up memorizing averages and how many runs scored of Gavaskar and all of those. Different generation, of course, from Arvind. But I wanted to always do this thing. So launch a cricket site. So we had this domain Khel.com. And the big challenge was, okay, you can do the real-time coverage. But how do you bring in the statistics? Because that is the fun stuff. And then I remember at that time, when we were trying to get the cricket data of all tests played, all one-day matches played, Ranji trophies played. I think the data was, of course, a big challenge. And I met Mr. Mohandas Menon, a cricket statistician at that time.
He still is.
Yeah, he's an amazing person. But he said, look, I've got this file, this software program on DOS or something like that on a desktop. There's all these files which are there. And if you can figure out how to decode them, you make some sense of it. So we had basically literally bits and bytes. We had no idea of the data structures because it was a executable file which was using this database. So we sat for 3 weeks, literally went byte by byte. We said, okay, the first match was played here. These were the runs scored. Now, which fields map to the runs scored? And all of this is in, I think, hexadecimal or whatever. And then, player codes were there. I mean, it was, the reverse engineering was phenomenal. But then the outcome of that was tremendous because we got these cricket scorecards. And that helped us launch Khel.com with the cricket scorecards. And we had, Cricinfo was, of course, there. I used to tell people, I said, the best cricket statistics that you will get are on Khel.com because it was more built by a sort of real passion that I personally had with a very small team of cricket and making the stats available. So even to date, when I think back, sometimes I wonder maybe Khel.com I should have kept instead of selling it in 99.
I cannot believe it. So you're saying in 1996, you guys actually went and collected data. Wow. Okay, so we are facing the exact same problem in Kabaddi. But tell me.
Every cricket match played, Ranji Trophy. I want to do Ranji Trophy also. In India, how can you not have Ranji Trophy? So all the matches, etc. We had of course, the scorecards were there, and then player pages, essentially for every, and then stats for every player. We did not do ball by ball in terms of the event, the way you described.
Right.
But we had real-time coverage. So I had 2 people in my office watch TV and update the scores in real time. It was the big attractor for Khel.com.
Correct.
At that time. And but we had all the stats of the scores.
So in 1996, 99,
97, yeah.
97, people were actively following a match on a phone or not on a phone.
On a desktop, in office, basically.
Phone is on a desktop.
On the desktop.
Arvind, you give away your age.
I do.
This is good old desktop going on Khel. I have gone on to khel.com, pressing refresh button.
But Jaimin, let me tell you this. In IIT, I did not have a computer till my second year. So I at least understand that world, and we did not have LAN in my hostel till my final year. So I'm not this generation that is, generation that doesn't even know internet without a device, right? A touchscreen device. I'm not that. I have used a BlackBerry here. When we talk about,
no.
I just want to set context. I'm not that.
No.
I'm like to be that young.
I can beat you very simple. I did all my management projects without internet. Khatam. I'm better than you.
You are.
So coming back, how are you solving the problem of data on Kabaddi Adda?
So we are doing exactly what Rajesh did. We are going. So at this point, we have used I told you back then, our core ability is a scoring tool. Right now also our core ability is a scoring tool. We have now built a scoring tool where you can score a game, not a super organized PKL level game, a game where, 5 people where the players are there, but you don't know who the players are, nothing. They just start playing and we can score the game. So we built a scoring tool that is, Desi ready. That's our core IP. Again, but it lets us collect data at a very, very low cost. So that's one part of the process, which is actually collecting data about happening and future events, which itself is not easy, right? And then trying to democratize. So we are saying, let us democratize data collection. Sabko correct karne do, right? Because that is a real problem that needs to get solved. And if the sport has to grow, we think data should drive that. One of the things that drove the cricket revolution was everybody talking about data. Like Rajesh said, right? He was a walking, talking average teller. That understanding that so many people had of cricket data, nobody has in Kabaddi, right? And if the fan starts seeing the data of the sport, I think it'll elevate the fan experience to another level. So our motivation is that we don't know how to solve the problem. I really want to pick Rajesh your brains after this and tell you where we are stuck and really see if you can help us solve this problem. Because if we can get exactly like you, there is no event by event data. That doesn't even exist. But at least let us get aggregate data of Asian Games that India has won. India has won 9 gold medals. No one knows who the teams were. Forget who won. Forget what the scores are. You don't know what the scores are. You don't know the teams are. We are saying at least let us get that. So we are actually trying to painfully find that data. Right now, we are finding that data store. That data store we roughly have some sense where it is. He at least found Mohandas Menon. We don't, we feel like somebody from our team will be the Mohandas Menon of this sport, which is worrisome, but hopefully fun also. See, Kabaddi mein to hum to bol rahe ki boss, we are still a content business. So we want to be a data business, but we are predominantly a content business, right? We have a very engaged YouTube channel, which is like almost 250,000 subscribers. So 250,000 plus subscribers. We get over 25 million views a year. Instagram is another one of those platforms. That's basically what we are. And we are a website. We are a content distribution platform. Data aggregation to abhi start hua hai. That is where we are. So it's a very tough problem here. I mean, it's such a fantastic story what Rajesh did back in 97. I cannot believe we are still solving the same problem.
No, I think it'll be fantastic. Hopefully, when people listen to you, I think it will create a new generation of Kabaddi lovers who will come and help solve the problems that we are today facing. I think fascinating story. And to sort of bring it to a close, I think I have one question for you. So when you look back at your 20 years, if there are 1 or 2 pivotal moments, sort of turning points in your life, what do you think they would be?
So I think, it keeps coming back to Danya, right? I mean, I can't really come back to that. But
I also will have a similar answer, but yeah, go ahead.
It's the fact that we did that first company out of IIT was really a big step or whatever, right? Both of us are South Indian middle class family. So we are both coming from a background ki job low, aram se salary come out, right? So the fact that we did that in IIT is probably one of those, if I have to pick just one event, that is probably it, right? The fact that we did it together and then we still continued dating after that was enough reason to say maybe we can do it together in the future.
Oh, fantastic. And I wish you all the best. My wife and I also have been working together. Bhavna and I have been working together now for 25 years. So
good to hear.
We started working after our marriage, after my first sort of companies failed. And then I realized that I didn't have to pay her a salary. So
you know exactly where we are today.
But it's been amazing talking to you, Arvind. I think fantastic story. I like Jemit if he has any one or two parting comments, questions.
No questions. But I'll tell you my big learning for today. My big learning today is entire value of one great individual, a leader, a manager, or whatever it is, a cricketer, can be explained simply by this. I hope I'm explaining the same.
You have plotted the curves perfectly, Jemit.
Perfect. This is what people can do. It's very difficult to beat the curve at some point of time. Your end of the day, there is mean revertal, everything. There is a certain people who just have the magical ability of shifting this curve. And to my mind, this explanation that you've given, now always we've believed in certain leaders, we believed in certain people. This explanation that you're giving me and mathematically proving it is gold. Rajesh?
Absolutely. I think, Jemit, you've captured it. See, I mean, when we started, when you said Kabaddi analytics, I said, okay, what is that going to, how are we going to talk for an hour plus? And I'm telling you, the time has just flown by. Arvind, it's been a fantastic conversation. So many takeaways at different levels. But I think for me, the biggest thing is seeing your passion, yours and Dhanya's passion, which shines through. I think, wish you the very best. I think, and I'm sure what you're doing has multiple different applications. I think we all know of Moneyball in the baseball, that movie which came out, and the efforts, how that sort of transformed baseball. I think what you're doing has the ability to genuinely transform not just Kabaddi and cricket, but I think every Indian sport. The way we look at sports from an early age, I think with data and analytics, I think can be truly transformational.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I remember those days. I watching Moneyball and wondering, I will learn something that we can apply in Kabaddi. And I remember watching baseball and not understanding anything about it in Moneyball. Ye kya bol raha hai? I didn't understand any of the stats. But it was an absolute pleasure. Arvind, from the very first time I met you and all the nonsense that we've done on the Kabaddi side and all the pains that we've taken on players and is a great thing. Thanks a lot for thanks for spending the time and explaining the whole thing to us. Any last words from you, Arvind, before I make the mandatory thank yous?
I think I have to close with a Kabaddi Atta story, right? And I think, the rise of Kabaddi for us has really been instructive of what Bharat wants. हमको पता लगा कि भारत के ऑडियंस को कंटेंट हिंदी में चाहिए, भारत के ऑडियंस को कंटेंट वर्नाकुलर लैंग्वेज में चाहिए, राइट? किसी को अंग्रेजी में नहीं चाहिए, पर हम कंटेंट बनाते हैं अंग्रेजी में, राइट? तो वो शिफ्ट करने में ना जो हमने एफर्ट डाला, that learning has shown me कि the opportunities to build companies and startups for Bharat is such a wide open landscape that an upcoming entrepreneur should be solving for Bharat and not for India. That's my kind of big pitch to everyone today.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. India is Bharat and not India. I'm with you totally. It's something that even I've been trying to get vernacular content and vernacular conversations going. So thanks a lot. Thank you, Arvind. Thank you, Rajesh. And thank you for watching Hippo Brain, an amazing Hippo Brain conversation with a Hippo, with a Hippo Brain himself. I think we should have made a mistake. I think we should have got even your wife into this conversation, and that would have been good fun. But for another time and for another day, we'll figure out how she tries and slices the brain and makes any sense out of it.
I'm sure there'll be something there.
Yes, thank you for watching Hippo Brain, and you can get us on YouTube, subscribe, and I'm given to understand you have to ring that bell icon. You have to press on that bell icon, then only you're going to get most of the notifications. So do that. And as I've often said, statistics proves that if you watch Hippo Brain episodes, you are likely to die at least 30% richer than if you don't watch any Hippo Brain. So get it on YouTube, get it on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for being a valuable guest, Arvind, and thank you all.